Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going under the surface to explore sharks in Thailand.
Yeah, it's a really interesting area to look at. Thailand is famous for its beaches, of course, and its culture, but its marine life, well, sometimes that gets overlooked a bit.
It's a whole other world down there, right?
Mhm.
And actually, the source we're using for this deep dive comes from a unique perspective. It's this article called Sharks in Thailand, Myths, Realities, and Marine Ecosystems, published by Ocean Worldwide.
Ocean Worldwide, they're that luxury real estate agency, right? Based in Phuket?
Yeah, Phuket, or as we should be pronouncing it, Phuket. And they've been around for a while, since 2004.
Wow, so they must know the area pretty well. I know they
Yeah.
specialize in those luxury properties, in Phuket and Koh Samui.
Exactly. And their director, Sandra O'Neill, she's been helping families and investors find their dream properties in Thailand for years. Thousands of them, actually.
Which makes what they have to say about sharks even more interesting. It's not just coming from a purely scientific viewpoint. It's coming from people who really know and live in those coastal areas.
All right, so let's jump into this article. It starts by painting this really vivid picture of Thailand's coral reefs. Just this world teeming with life, colorful fish, anemones, sea turtles, everything. You really get a sense of the biodiversity.
And it's important to remember that these reefs aren't just pretty to look at, right? I mean, they're vital for protecting the coastlines. They're like natural barriers against erosion from the ocean.
They're like the unsung heroes of the underwater world. Okay, so let's talk about those creatures that often get a bad rap, you know, sharks.
Yeah. The article dives right into that. They know people are afraid of sharks, but
Mhm.
but it goes beyond just like, debunking those common myths.
You mean like how they're not all just mindless killing machines constantly hunting humans?
Exactly. It really highlights how important sharks are for maintaining a healthy ecosystem. Like, for example, they actually help regulate fish populations. They're the top predators, so they prevent any one species from taking over.
So they're like the guardians of balance in these underwater communities.
Exactly. And the article gives some specific examples too. Like there's the black tip reef shark. You see those a lot in Thailand. And they're actually very shy. They avoid people.
That's definitely not the image we usually get from like movies and stuff, right?
Right. Speaking of movies, let's talk about those dramatic shark attacks you always see on screen. Because the article really stresses how rare those are in Thailand. You're more likely to get struck by lightning.
Wow, that really puts things in perspective. So what does cause those rare incidents then?
Well, the article suggests that most of the time it's just it's mistaken identity, or people acting in ways that mimic prey, like splashing around a lot or wearing shiny objects that attract attention.
So it's about understanding shark behavior and being respectful visitors in their home.
Right. It's about responsible tourism, knowing how to act so you can enjoy the experience safely.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this leads to another interesting point the article makes about whale sharks, those gentle giants. Apparently, they're frequent visitors to Thai waters.
Oh yeah, whale sharks are amazing. I mean, they're huge, the biggest fish in the ocean. But they're totally harmless. They just eat plankton and small fish.
I've always wanted to see a whale shark in the wild.
Well, Thailand's a great place for that. The article mentions a few spots like Koh Tao, the Similan Islands, and Koh Chang, where you're more likely to encounter them.
Wow. So it's not just about avoiding sharks in Thailand. It's about appreciating these incredible creatures and understanding the role they play.
Exactly. But even with gentle giants like whale sharks, remember, respecting their space is crucial. You can observe them and appreciate them, but keep your distance.
Okay, so responsible tourism and understanding shark behavior, they go hand in hand when it comes to experiencing Thailand's underwater world, right?
Exactly. And that brings us to the topic of conservation. The article talks about how Thailand has made a real effort to protect its marine environment, establishing these marine protected areas, MPAs.
MPAs, can you explain what those are?
Well, they're basically like underwater national parks,
Right.
places where marine life is protected, like Muko Similan and Surin National Parks. They mention those specifically.
So it's like creating these safe zones where these ecosystems can thrive without human interference.
Exactly. And it's not just about the government setting up these areas either. Local communities are really getting involved in conservation too.
That's great to hear. It's so important to have that local support and involvement. What kind of things are they doing?
They're working on mangrove restoration projects, trying to make fishing more sustainable and even organizing beach cleanups, all sorts of stuff, all community led.
That's awesome. And as tourists, we can definitely play a role in supporting those efforts.
Absolutely. Choosing eco-friendly tour operators, making sure we're not using too much plastic, maybe even participating in some of those conservation activities ourselves.
It's about traveling responsibly and leaving a positive impact.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, the article also mentions diving and snorkeling with sharks in Thailand, which of course needs to be done responsibly.
So let's talk about actually getting in the water.
Yeah.
What kind of guidelines do they recommend for safe interactions?
Well, they emphasize following your instructor's guidance, obviously, maintaining a safe distance, not making any sudden movements, and definitely never feeding or touching the sharks.
Basically, treat the ocean like you're a guest in someone's home. Be respectful.
Exactly. Now, aside from the Andaman Sea, which we've mostly been talking about, the article also mentions the Gulf of Thailand as another place where you can see sharks.
Interesting. What kind of sharks live in the Gulf?
Well, they mention blacktip reef sharks, bamboo sharks, and leopard sharks.
Leopard sharks. Those sound pretty cool.
They are, and they say Korin Island is a good spot to see bamboo sharks and even whale sharks sometimes.
So another potential spot to add to the shark enthusiasts' bucket list?
For sure. However, they do mention some environmental challenges that are impacting the Gulf, like pollution and overfishing.
It's too bad. It's a reminder that even paradise isn't immune to human impact.
Very true. It just highlights how important these conservation efforts are.
Okay, this is all really fascinating. Before we get into even more detail, though, I think it's time for us to take a quick break. We'll be back soon to continue exploring the amazing world of sharks in Thailand.
So before the break, we were talking about those challenges facing the Gulf of Thailand, the pollution and overfishing. It's a good reminder that what we do has a real impact on the ocean, right?
Yeah, it really makes you think. But I'm also curious about what's being done about it, What steps are being taken to address those problems?
Well, the article mentions a few things. For instance, they're looking at using drones to monitor shark populations,
To what?
track their movements and stuff.
Drones, huh? So technology is helping us understand and protect them. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And they're also encouraging what they call citizen science, getting divers and snorkelers to report any sharks they see. That can help researchers get a better picture of where sharks are and how they're behaving.
So everyday people can contribute to the research just by sharing what they see. I like that. It makes conservation feel more accessible. Like anyone can participate.
Exactly. It's a great example of how we can all work together to make a difference. But I think one of the most important things is tackling those deep-seated fears that people have about sharks.
Oh, totally. Those Hollywood movies with sharks as these mindless man-eaters, they don't exactly help, do they?
Right. The article does a good job of breaking down those myths and presenting a more realistic picture of shark behavior. I mean, sharks aren't just swimming around constantly looking for people to eat.
So what are they doing then? What makes their behavior so complex?
Well, for example, sharks are essential for the health of the whole food web. It's a concept called trophic cascade. Basically, their presence as top predators influences the behavior and the populations of all the other species in the ecosystem.
So they're kind of like the conductors of an orchestra, keeping everything in harmony.
That's a great way to put it. And it just highlights why it's so important to protect them. If shark populations decline, the effects can be felt throughout the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how it's all connected. Conservation isn't just about saving one species. It's about protecting the whole environment, right?
Exactly. And speaking of conservation, let's talk about what Thailand is actually doing to protect its marine environment. The article talks about how they're establishing more and more of those marine protected areas, the MPAs.
Oh, yeah, the underwater national parks we were talking about before.
Right. Those are super important for giving sharks and other marine life a safe space to thrive. They help replenish fish populations, they protect sensitive habitats, and they just make the whole ecosystem more resilient.
So it's like creating these pockets of regeneration, right?
Yeah.
Where nature can bounce back.
Exactly. And it's not just about designating these areas. Thailand is also cracking down on illegal fishing, especially the kind that targets sharks.
That's good to hear. So they actually have laws to protect them.
Yeah. And while it can be hard to enforce those laws perfectly, it's definitely a step in the right direction. And Thailand isn't working alone on this either. The article mentions how they're collaborating with international organizations to share information and best practices.
So it's a global effort, huh? Protecting the oceans requires working together.
Absolutely. And education is a huge part of it, too. The article talks about how Thailand is really trying to educate both its citizens and visitors.
So it's about raising awareness and empowering people to take action.
Exactly. They're doing all sorts of things like workshops on reducing plastic waste, campaigns about the importance of sharks, even training programs for local communities on sustainable fishing.
That's really impressive. They're tackling it from all angles,
Hmm.
from policies and enforcement to community involvement and education.
It shows a real commitment to marine sustainability. They understand that protecting the ocean isn't just about the environment. It's about the economy, and uh, it's about the future.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. We've gone from like debunking myths about sharks to understanding how crucial they are for the ecosystem, to seeing how Thailand is taking action to protect them. It's really inspiring.
It is. It just shows that when we combine knowledge and action, we can make a real difference.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to take another quick pause. We'll be right back to wrap up our exploration of sharks in Thailand. Welcome back. We've been on quite a journey exploring sharks in Thailand.
We have, from those scary myths to understanding their role in the ecosystem and then all the work being done to protect them.
It's pretty amazing how it all started with an article from a real estate agency, right?
Hmm.
You wouldn't think Ocean Worldwide would be talking about sharks, but it makes sense when you consider their connection to the coast.
Yeah, they have a vested interest in keeping those areas beautiful and healthy. And that includes the marine life.
So as we wrap things up, what are some of the key takeaways you think our listeners should remember?
Well, first of all, I hope they've come away with a new appreciation for sharks. These creatures are so much more than just scary predators. They're essential for a healthy ocean.
And we can all do our part to protect them,
Right.
whether it's making responsible choices when we travel, supporting conservation groups, or just spreading the word about how important sharks are.
Right. Every little bit helps.
This whole deep dive has really highlighted how connected everything is, the balance of the food web to global conservation efforts. It's like we're all in this together.
We are, and that's a powerful message to remember. The future of sharks and really the whole planet depends on us working together.
So any final thoughts for our listeners today?
I'd say this. Next time you come across something about sharks, don't be afraid. Be curious. Dig a little deeper. Ask questions, challenge those assumptions. And if you ever get the chance to see these amazing creatures in their natural habitat, do it responsibly, respect the ocean, and all the life within it.
Well said. And for anyone who wants to learn more, there are tons of great documentaries about sharks, or check out the websites of some of the organizations working to protect them. There's a whole world of information out there.
And who knows, maybe your next trip to Thailand will include an unforgettable shark encounter. Just remember everything we talked about. Be responsible, be respectful.
Until then, happy exploring, everyone.